What you're about to hear was told to me by a woman in her 70s in a kitchen in West Virginia in the fall of 2016. She asked me not to use her name. I won't, but I'll tell you the story exactly as she told it to me. And I swear to you, every word of it is true. There is a house on the bend of Coldwater Creek, about an hour outside of any town worth naming. I want you to picture it. A 2-story farmhouse, white clapboard, most of the paint gone. A porch that sags in the middle like a tired old man. Apple trees out back that haven't borne fruit in 30 years. And a chimney that, in the right light, looks less like brick and more like a clenched jaw. The locals don't go past it after dark. They don't talk about it much either. But if you buy someone a drink at the diner in Sutton and ask, carefully, and only once, they will tell you what they know. What they know is this. A man built that house in 1947. His name was Elias Gant. He and his wife had 4 children. They were, by every account, a quiet and decent family. Elias farmed. His wife canned. The children went to the one-room school down the road and came home for supper. And then, in the autumn of 1953, all 5 of them disappeared. No bodies, no note, no struggle. The supper was still on the table when the sheriff came by, 3 days later, because Elias hadn't shown up to sell his tobacco at market. Cornbread, a pot of beans, 5 plates, set out and never touched. The beans had gone cold, but they had not gone bad. That's the first strange thing. The second strange thing is that the front door was locked from the inside. The third strange thing, and this is the one the old woman told me, leaning close enough that I could smell the coffee on her breath, is what was written on the basement wall. Now, if you're listening to this and you've ever lived in a house that didn't quite feel like yours, I want you to stay with me. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you noticed. Tell me the small thing, because the small things are where these stories live. She told me she moved into the Coldwater house in the spring of 1981. She was 26. She'd inherited it from an aunt she'd barely known, and she needed somewhere cheap to live while she finished her nursing degree. The house had been empty for almost 30 years by then. The first night, she slept on a mattress on the floor of the upstairs bedroom. She left the hall light on. She told me she didn't know why. In the morning, she went down to the basement to see if the old coal furnace still worked. That's where she found the book. It was a ledger, black cloth cover, no title, no name. The pages were thick and yellow, the kind of paper that used to be used for church records. The handwriting inside was small, careful, and very old. The first entry was dated October 3rd, 1953. It read, "The wind stopped at 9. The dog has not moved. I have set the table. If you are reading this, I am sorry. I tried to keep the names off the list. I failed. Signed, E.G." The next page was a list of names, 23 of them. Elias's name was at the top. His wife's name was the second. The 4 children's names followed. Then there were other names, neighbors, the sheriff, the man who delivered the mail, people from town. And at the very bottom of the list, in handwriting that was not the same as the rest, shakier, as if the hand had been in a hurry, was her own name. She told me she stood there for a long time. The furnace ticked behind her. Somewhere above her, the porch door she had locked the night before was open. She did what most people would do. She told herself it was a coincidence, someone with the same name, a relative she didn't know about. She put the book back on the shelf, walked upstairs, and made herself breakfast. For the next 3 weeks, she lived in the house, and nothing happened. She went to class, she studied, she slept. The book stayed on the basement shelf. She did not open it again. But she began to notice things. She would set out 4 plates for dinner, even though she lived alone. She would hear a soft sound from the basement, like a page turning. But when she went down, the book was always in the same place. She would wake in the night and find that the hall light she'd left on had been turned off, and that another light in a room she never used had been turned on. And every morning when she came down to the kitchen, the front door was locked from the inside. She told me the first real fright came on a Tuesday. She'd been up late studying. Around 2 a.m, she heard footsteps on the stairs. Not loud, not fast, just measured. The way a person walks when they are trying not to wake someone. She held her breath. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs. They moved down the hall. They stopped outside her bedroom door. And then, very softly, from the other side of the door, she heard her own name. She told me she did not answer. She said she lay there until dawn, with the blanket pulled up to her chin, and she listened to whatever it was stand outside her door. It did not knock. It did not speak again. It just stood there, breathing, until the first gray light came through the window. And then, very slowly, the breathing stopped, and the footsteps walked back down the stairs. She moved out of the house 2 weeks later. She left the book, she left the furniture, she didn't go back for any of it. She finished her degree in another town. She got married, she had children, she lived a long and, by all appearances, a normal life. But she told me one more thing before I left her kitchen that afternoon. She asked me to lean in, so I did, and she said it in a voice so low I almost missed it. She said, the last page of the book, the one she never told anyone about, was blank, except for a single line, written in a hand she did not recognize. And the line was a name. Not hers. Mine. Hey, thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. Stories like this one are the reason I make these videos. If this one sat with you, even a little, consider subscribing. I post a new one every week. And if you've got a story of your own, a house, a sound, a name you didn't expect to find, tell me in the comments. I read every one. Until next time, try to sleep well.